So I wanted to talk today a little bit about my god brothers in general. In particular, I got a exchange going on with one of my god brothers named Aniha Das. I think he's from Leicester, UK, United Kingdom. And he was arguing with me about some of the points that have come up over the years in ISKCON. And I think he's very typical of a lot of my god brothers and the type of arguments that I get from my god brothers. So I thought we should review my conversation with him and let's see what some of the points are that generally keep coming up over and over again. Now, first of all, Aniha says that Srila Prabhupada can no longer be the guru for people presently because he is not here presently, and people can wait for another birth, or they can go to the Himalayas and see if they can find Srila Vyasadeva to be their guru, but under no circumstances can Srila Prabhupada be the guru for people right now. Okay, who is going to be the guru to replace Srila Prabhupada? He doesn't say, he's not sure. So let's look at his first statement here. Srila Prabhupada's books are there for everyone to read. As every Vaishnavacharya is present in their books, so is Srila Prabhupada present in his books. Sounds good. Srila Prabhupada is present in his books. ISKCON is still distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, but unfortunately, Srila Prabhupada's books can no longer connect you to Krishna. You have to find another guru. Srila Prabhupada is not going to be that person. But if we look at Srila Prabhupada's books in 1970, when I became a devotee, the books had a certain potency. They had the potency to make me into a devotee. The books are still making other people into devotees now. I don't understand what has changed. The books are just as potent in 1970 as they are now. It's the same book. So I don't understand how the book has lost potency now. And Srila Prabhupada cannot deliver Krishna to people now. What has changed? I don't understand. Unless we consider that the guru is a mundane body, and when the body disappears, his instructions are no longer potent or valid or whatever it is. I never really understood their argument. The books have all along been making devotees of Krishna because they have potency. The potency doesn't diminish just because the so-called speaker is absent. If that was true, then the Bhagavad Gita would have no potency at all. Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita 5,000 years ago. He's not here, so therefore his words no longer have potency. That makes no sense at all. No, the book is just as potent as when Krishna spoke those words 5,000 years ago. But even in the mundane world, let's say for example, I have a friend, he works on motorcycles. He reads motorcycle manuals to fix motorcycles. And he works sometimes on very old motorcycles, and he reads the old manual that was written in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s. He never asks, is the author of this motorcycle manual alive or not alive? What difference does that make? You know, the author of the motorcycle manual is present in the book. He gave his instructions, and his instructions are still valid now, just as much as they were when the book was printed in 1955 or whatever it was. The book does not lose potency because the author is not physically present anymore, even in the mundane, ordinary world where people are reading motorcycle manuals. So the book is always having the same potency. The author is present or not present, that is not really the issue. But according to Aniha, oh no. The book can no longer save people. The book no longer has potency. People have to go and find a living guru. And Srila Prabhupada is no longer going to be the guru. Then Aniha says, however, never has a disciple taken Diksha from a Vaishnava after their disappearance. Diksha means the guru must accept the prospective candidate. It is not that we can force the hand of the guru or claim to be a disciple without the guru's acceptance. Okay, so we can't get divyam jnanam, which destroys sins, from the books. Divyam jnanam, which destroys sins, is what Diksha is. So there is no longer any divyam jnanam that destroys sins in Prabhupada's books. The books are now just drained out of all potency. People cannot get divyam jnanam from Srila Prabhupada. Well, why has that changed? I don't understand the point. The books were giving divyam jnanam, which destroys sins, in 1970. They're still giving divyam jnanam, which destroys sins now. Aniya says, no, that has stopped. People who are reading about Krishna from Prabhupada's books are not getting any divyam jnanam, and their sins are not being destroyed, because why? He doesn't explain. And then we have another problem. Many of the, let's say, post-1978 followers of Prabhupada, who were not initiated by Prabhupada, are following much better than the so-called formal initiated people from the 1970s. Many of the 1970s devotees fell down into all kinds of horrible deviations. But they're connected to Krishna. So people who have been engaged in illicit sex with men, women, and children, drinking vodka, smoking pot, watching football, all kinds of things have been going on with the so-called formal initiated Prabhupada disciples, but they are connected to Krishna. Now a new person comes along, he reads Prabhupada's books, he's following strictly, he's not drinking vodka, he's not having illicit sex with men, women, and children, therefore he is not connected to Krishna. Again, it makes no sense. How is that possible? The people who are following the Guru are connected to the Guru. That just makes absolutely common sense. Srila Prabhupada never said that the people who are not following are going to be connected because they're formally initiated. He said the people who follow are the people who are connected. The following people are not connected according to Aniha. All these deviant people are connected because they got some kind of a ceremony. Then Aniha says that the people who are following Prabhupada now, they're reading his books, they're following his instructions, they're worshiping Krishna, they are not connected to Krishna at all. In fact, they are a dangerous, bogus, sahaja cult. That's what he's saying. They are not connected to Krishna, they're dangerous. We have to watch out for anyone who follows Srila Prabhupada's instructions. Very, very dangerous. But, of course, the GBC and all these people who are deviating, they're connected because they have the formal initiation ceremony. So he's confusing the ceremony with the connection. The ceremony does not connect you. Just because somebody got a baptism in the church, that doesn't make that person a saint. A lot of mafia people are getting some ceremony in the church. That doesn't mean they're saintly people. The ceremony does not connect you. That is an external situation only. The connection is internal. A person who is following Prabhupada and following Krishna is connected. The person who got the ceremony may or may not be connected. Then Aniha says if people are really serious about getting initiated now, they should go to the Himalayas and find Srila Vyasadeva and take initiation from him. Okay, wait a minute. So we're going to meet some guy on the street and we're going to tell him to go to the Himalayas and find Srila Vyasadeva if he wants to be initiated. If he wants divyam jnanam that destroys sins, he's got to go to the Himalayas. Well, how is that going to work? I mean, is Aniha going to even go to the Himalayas and find Srila Vyasadeva himself? No, it's not practical. It's just an insane suggestion. People are not going to go to the Himalayas to try to find Srila Vyasadeva. It's just totally impossible suggestion. Then Aniha says Srila Prabhupada will always be the founder Acharya and always will be, but Srila Prabhupada's mission was not to destroy the parampara. Well, wait a minute. You're saying that Srila Prabhupada is not the guru. That destroys the parampara right there. As soon as you say that the Acharya is no longer the Guru, then where's the parampara from there? It's stopped. You have stopped it. Then I asked Aniha to name the current Acharya. Srila Prabhupada is not the current Acharya. Okay, fine. Who is the current Acharya? He says it is not his business to name the Acharya. It's not his business to name how people can be saved from repeated birth and death in the material world. It's not his business to save people. He's not going to help people when they're lost in the material world. He's going to tell them to go find Srila Vyasadeva in the Himalayas. That's not going to help anybody at all. No, the duty of a Vaishnava is to help people connect to Krishna and Prabhupada. Otherwise, they're just going to stay in the material world. So a Vaishnava is par dukhi dukhi. He feels compassion for the fallen souls, so he tries to connect the fallen souls to Krishna. He doesn't tell people, oh, don't bother worshipping Prabhupada, go find a guru in the Himalayas. That's going to be a solution for you. No, that is not a solution. And Prabhupada never said that would be a solution. Prabhupada never said we should send people to find Srila Vyasadeva in the Himalayas. It's just a totally concocted idea. Then a woman comes in to the conversation and she adds this comment: Anihadas, the parampara is not destroyed by apparent gaps. It is destroyed by not preserving and serving the knowledge as it is. Srila Prabhupada has made that clear in so many lectures. We are foolish to think that the parampara has to be supported by physical bodies. Even in our direct disciplic succession, there are very recent examples. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not the Diksha disciple of Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, nor was Gorkashore Das Babaji the Diksha disciple of Bhaktivinoda. Neither was Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur a direct disciple of Narottam Das Thakur. Anyway, Diksha actually means the transference of Divyam Jnanam, transcendental knowledge. Obviously, Srila Prabhupada is a person who has given us a boatload of transcendental knowledge that we have been so fortunate to have gotten, and he will continue to do so as we continue to be connected with him, humbly receiving his mercy. Then Aniha says, we cannot make Srila Prabhupada the Guru because he said he wanted his disciples to become gurus. Okay, fine. Which of the disciples is the Guru now? Oh, he can't tell me. But he can say for sure who is not the Guru. Prabhupada is not the Guru. Who is the Guru? He doesn't know. He can't say. And he says, I don't have enough purity to determine whether someone is or is not pure amongst these disciples. Well, I don't know. If all this garbage has been going on in ISKCON ever since 1978, and one of those disciples is pure, then why didn't that pure disciple speak up by now and complain and raise a manure storm and try to halt the deterioration of ISKCON? If there was a pure devotee amongst Prabhupada's disciples, by now he would be self-effulgent. We would know who he is by his self-effulgence. He would be preaching the right thing, and people would be following that person because it would be self-evident and self-effulgent that he was preaching the right thing. So I don't have to identify a pure devotee. The pure devotee is identified by his potency and his preaching and his practice of Krishna consciousness. It's not my job to identify pure devotees. The pure devotees are self-effulgent, which means Krishna is identifying who they are. I am not Krishna. I don't identify pure devotees. He doesn't get it. It's not my job to say which of my godbrothers is pure. But it is my job to say my godbrothers are not doing the job of keeping ISKCON pure. That I can say clearly. They are not doing the job. And if one of them was on the job, who is that person? He doesn't say. He doesn't know. Then I asked Aniha, who do we tell people to offer the bhoga to? The bhoga is the food offerings that are made by the Krishna devotees. They offer their food to the pure devotee, and he says, well, people can still offer the bhoga to Srila Prabhupada. Oh, what? Wait a minute. You just said, how do we know Prabhupada is accepting these new people as his followers? But we do know that Prabhupada is accepting the bhoga offerings made by these new people. Again, it makes no sense. Srila Prabhupada is for sure accepting their offerings of bhoga, but he is not accepting their service to Krishna. That's contradictory. That makes no sense. He doesn't accept their service. He accepts their bhoga offering. Okay? Not making sense. Then Aniha says he doesn't accept that the Ritvik process, or the process of initiating people through a proxy system, is authorized. We shouldn't be initiating people as Prabhupada's disciples. Okay, so that stops the initiation process, and the result of that is that many temples have no pujaris, or not enough pujaris to take care of the Krishna deities, or to cook for the Krishna deities. And that has led to a bunch of Bengalis coming to the United States to man those positions, to take the positions of pujaris and cooks. And many of those Bengalis have had problems. We had one here, and he was just waiting to get his green card, his immigration card. As soon as he got the card, he ran off and started working as a cook in the meat restaurant down the street. So he was never a very sincere person. He was just here to exploit economically, being in the United States. Some other of these Bengali pujaris would do the morning artik, and then they would run off to the donut shop where they would talk to the waitresses at the donut shop. So again, same problem. They weren't very sincere. Now, some of them may be sincere or not, but the point is, there was a huge shortage of pujaris, of people to take care of the deities. And there still is a shortage. There's still advertising in India, we need a pujari, salary offered, and all the rest of it. So Aniha's idea that there should be no more pujaris, no more cooks, how is Krishna going to be served without any pujaris or cooks? I don't understand how that works either. Let's make sure Krishna has no pujaris and no cooks. Wait, where did Prabhupada say that? No, Prabhupada said we should have initiated brahmanas doing the deity worship and doing the cooking. That's what Prabhupada wanted. Prabhupada did not want us to have no one there to serve the deities. Prabhupada installed all these deities just so that everyone would just leave and put them in a storage container somewhere? I mean, what is the plan? Aniha has no plan. Let's starve the deities. Let's make the deities have no servants. Let's give them, no one to dress them, and that's actually become a big problem. Many of these deities aren't being kept up properly. They have bad clothing, bad offerings, and just bad service. And some people have said it's like putting Krishna into a ghetto. Now, my wife was one of these people who was working very hard to, overcome this problem. There was no pujaris here in Berkeley. There was not enough people here to serve the deities. So she was working overtime, double time, triple time, trying to compensate for that. And it was very stressful. She had to work, do the work of 5 or 6 people because we didn't have these 5 or 6 people. And then even me, I was painting the Jagannath deities every year because we didn't have anyone else to do it. So I had to go to the ISKCON temple and help the ISKCON temple because we didn't have the manpower or the person there, and nor was there someone there I could train to do it for many, many, many years. So who's going to paint the deities, serve the deities, cook for the deities? And he doesn't care. He just says, let Krishna starve. Let Krishna be without proper dress, without proper food, offerings, with nothing. Let's just abandon Krishna with no servants. That's Aniha's plan? How is that going to work? And where did Prabhupada ever say that's what he wanted? So that's what happened. Aniha and these guys, my guide brothers, many guide brothers, they said, yeah, who needs to initiate people as Prabhupada's disciples? We don't need initiation anymore. End of story. And that ended up creating a huge shortage of personnel in the temples. We didn't have initiated people doing the service. So now we're down to, we have, ISKCON has had to allow some Ritviks and allow some Gaudiya and allow hired cooks and hired hands and hired Bengalis, and they've just had to fill in the gaps with whoever they could find to maintain the operation. So that was not Prabhupada's plan. And Neha never explains where was this ordered, that we were no longer going to have Brahmanas doing service in the temple. That was not the order. So then Neha says, well, Srila Prabhupada expected his disciples would become pure devotees and they would be gurus and we would be worshipping them. Okay, well, what has happened under that system is that we're now offering bhoga to conditioned souls. We're worshipping conditioned souls, and in England they were worshipping Jayatirtha and offering bhoga to Jayatirtha. But if you offer bhoga to an impure person and you worship an impure person, you take on the qualities of that person. So what happened was that a bunch of people started taking drugs. The followers of Jayatirtha developed the qualities of Jayatirtha, because when you offer bhoga to a person and you worship a person who has mundane, let's say, anarthas or defects, you absorb those defects and become part of those defects. And that is why in the Vedas they say you become what you worship. You become what you worship. So if you're worshiping a drug addict, you become a drug addict. Or you become sympathetic to drug addicts. And if you're worshiping a person engaged in illicit sex, you will be prone to illicit sex, and you will be prone to being in sympathy with people who are engaged in illicit sex. And that's what happened in ISKCON. We had a big, let's say, explosion of illicit sex and illicit activities, criminal activities, because people were worshiping illicit sex deviants and criminals, and that created a situation where they became what they worshipped. So how is that helping ISKCON and Neha? Can you explain that? Can you just tell us why worshipping illicit sex or even pedophiles were being worshipped, which created an explosion of pedophile child molesting all over the place? How is that helping ISKCON? Why not have people worship the pure devotee and continue with that? And, that's the known quantity. We know that's a good idea. Worshipping the so-called disciples and my God brothers, we know that causes a lot of trouble. It doesn't work very well. Because it was never the intended process. One thing a lot of my God brothers don't really understand very well is that when Prabhupada expected us to become pure devotees, that's like a kindergarten teacher expecting that his students will become brain surgeons. Yeah, they might become brain surgeons. They might not become brain surgeons. There's no guarantee that's going to happen. You're expecting a child to eventually become a brain surgeon, and he may or may not, but in the meantime, you don't give that child a scalpel and send him into the surgery room and say, go ahead and start doing a surgery. You don't do that. So expecting a child to become advanced, yeah, we all expect that. But that is not a guarantee that that will happen. Unfortunately, they went ahead and guaranteed, no, this guy's a pure devotee, that guy's a pure devotee, this guy's a guru, that guy's a guru. They went ahead and certified the kindergarten child as a brain surgeon, and that was never the intention of Prabhupada. Yeah, expecting someone to become pure does not mean that person has become pure. It's just common sense. Meanwhile, Prabhupada gave many, many warnings that we, the neophytes, cannot absorb sins as Diksha Gurus. We cannot do that because we will become overwhelmed by taking sins from other people. He said you would get sick, fall down, or both. And of course, many of them have died prematurely from taking sins. So again, another problem Neha fails to address. What happens when a neophyte takes sins? He starts to degrade. And Prabhupada says in the Nectar of Instruction that when you imitate the pure devotee, eventually you become degraded. So we see that over and over again. So his idea that these neophytes should just step into the shoes of an acharya is causing them to degrade and fail and die prematurely. Now, a number of my godbrothers have complained, Pranjan, you are trying to make Prabhupada into the Jesus of ISKCON. Well, maybe. And do you have any suggestions for who should be the Jesus of ISKCON? Sure, we got some nice sexual predators and illicit sex deviants, criminals, and lusty dogs. That's our suggestion. What do you think? Well, I think your suggestion is not working. That's what I think. Now, suppose both of us go to Yamaraj, and I've made a big mistake. I made Prabhupada the Jesus of ISKCON. That's my mistake. And their mistake is they made debauchees and degraded people into the successors of Krishna. Is Yamaraj going to beat me up for that? I don't think so. Is he going to beat them up for making debauchees into God's successors? Yes, for sure. Now, Neha says it's not his job to tell people who the guru is. That is the job of the Paramatma. The Paramatma will guide people to the guru. We don't have to do that. That is exactly not Prabhupada's system. Prabhupada had his devotees going out, distributing his books, trying to encourage people to become devotees of Krishna. So we are recruiting people to become devotees of Krishna. We're not just sitting around waiting for the Paramatma to do that work. That's our job. Our job is to make Krishna attractive and attract people to Krishna. We're not supposed to just wait for Krishna to fix all the problems and do all the preaching and do all the book distribution and do all the rest of it. That's our job as devotees. And that's what Prabhupada wanted us to do as his devotees. Make Krishna attractive and attract people to worshiping Krishna. The fallen souls should become attracted to Krishna. And his whole idea is the opposite. We're not going to do anything. We're going to let the super soul do everything. And in the meantime, we're going to be promoting debauchees and fools as acharyas, which is going to turn people away from Krishna. We're going to fry people out with Krishna. We're going to make Krishna unpopular. Okay. And then we're going to let the Paramatma fix everything. That is not how things work. But I did have an interesting experience once where some devotee, one of my godbrothers, was chastising me. Oh, Pranjan, you have no faith in Krishna. Krishna will fix all this stuff. You think you're the doer. You think you're going to fix everything. And just at that very time he was instructing me that way, his little kid came in the apartment, and the little kid had dog manure stuck to his shoes, and he was leaving little footprints on the carpet. And so this devotee started yelling at the kid. Okay, wait a minute. What happened to all your faith in Krishna? You mean you don't believe Krishna's going to bring his carpet cleaning truck over here and clean your carpet? So when it comes to his house, his apartment, his situation, oh my God, he's all ready to keep that maintained, keep that clean, keep that fixed. But when Krishna's house has manure being stomped around inside of it, well, that's up to Krishna. That's Krishna's problem, not my problem. Okay, well, that is exactly the wrong idea. We are supposed to keep Krishna's temple clean. We are supposed to serve Krishna, and we are supposed to be cleaning the Gundicha Mandir and making sure there's no rubbish accumulating in the temple. It's not Krishna's job to do that. It's our job. He wants to see if we are doing the job. Now, another interesting thing is, Aniha says the Paramatma is going to fix everything. Okay, so the Paramatma is guiding people to take shelter of Prabhupada, and then Aniha comes along and says that's a bunch of crap. Why are people taking shelter of Prabhupada? Why are they listening to the Paramatma? The Paramatma is telling them, take shelter of a pure devotee. Aniha says that's a bunch of bull crap. The Paramatma is full of crap. You can't do that. You can't have people surrendering to the pure devotee. You have to accept me. You have to accept me, Mr. Aniha, and many other God brothers who preach the same thing. And our idea is that you cannot surrender to the pure devotee. That's not possible. You have to wait for another lifetime. Aniha says that too. You have to wait for another lifetime. Okay, so he's putting the Paramatma direction off. He's directing people away from what the Paramatma is directing. And I get all kinds of letters all the time from people saying they're really glad they found my site and my instruction because I'm telling people to take shelter of the pure devotee. They think that's a good idea. And they think that's a good idea because the Paramatma is telling them that's a good idea. But it's not only the devotees. I mean, even the police, like in 1980, they were telling me Hansaduta is a criminal. He's not a guru. And they said there was Prabhupada and there was people who thought they were Prabhupada. So that is the police. And they understand the whole situation. They understood what hardly any devotees understood at the time or still understand. They understood the whole thing. You cannot imitate a pure devotee. That's all there is to it. So how did they figure that out? How did the police figure that out? Because the Super Soul told them. They are being guided by the Super Soul and the Paramatma. And the Paramatma is telling them, hey, this guy is bogus. He is not a guru. So there was like a frenzy to replace Srila Prabhupada with some of the God brothers acting as gurus, or Sridhar Maharaj, or Narayan Maharaj, or this Maharaj, that Maharaj. Just replace Srila Prabhupada. He is not the guru. Somebody else is going to be the guru. And Sridhar Maharaj is the founder, father of a bisexual guru deviation in India, where dissenters were banned, beaten, and assassinated. And that also happened in ISKCON. So if you're going to make conditioned souls into gurus, that's not going to be popular. You're going to have to ban people, beat people, sue people, and assassinate people to force that forward. It's not a natural process authorized by the Supreme Being. It's a mundane process, and it requires a lot of material manipulation, which was done in the Gaudiya Math in 1936 under Sridhar Maharaj, and later on the same thing happened in ISKCON. So now, in fairness, not all the God brothers went along with the false guru program. They just left, which was also not a good thing either. If 50 or 100 of them had protested in front of the temple saying we don't agree with deviants being worshipped as Prabhupada's successors, they could have made a public protest. It would have had some effect, but they just wandered off and enabled the situation to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And later on, in 1997, when I started the child molesting lawsuit, some of the parents came up and were screaming at me, saying, I'm destroying ISKCON. Yeah, but your kids were molested. You didn't say anything. You didn't do anything. You didn't sue anybody. You didn't put anybody in jail. You allowed this to continue. Now you're blaming me for trying to rectify the situation, which has become a crisis because children are committing suicide. So how is allowing suicides going to fix things? I don't get it. So there was like a conspiracy of going along with the bad guys and the false gurus, and there was a conspiracy of silence to allow them to continue. either way, there was a conspiracy. Now, people like Aniha are clearly on the side of supporting the false gurus. We can't have Prabhupada as a guru. We're going to make the GBC the guru, Narayan Maharaj the guru, Sridhar Maharaj the guru, anybody the guru, as long as it's not Prabhupada. He can clearly identify who is not the guru. He cannot identify who is actually going to replace Prabhupada now, because we've embarrassed him. All the people he's forwarded so far have fallen off the cliff. So now he just says it's somebody. It's somebody. Yeah, but he doesn't name the somebody because he knows that would be an embarrassment. So that's what they're down to now. Let's replace Prabhupada, but we don't want to name who that replacement is. Meanwhile, there's a growing group of people who are saying, wait a minute, maybe we should be promoting Prabhupada as the guru. Maybe that's a good idea. So I think Prabhupada will win by default. Eventually, people will realize, yeah, maybe we have to worship a pure devotee. Maybe that's the best path forward. And I think that will happen. And it is happening gradually in a kind of grassroots way, but no thanks to most of the God brothers. They didn't help support this idea and promote this idea. And, they therefore are guilty by commission or omission of helping create this situation. Now, one lady here in 1986, she told me she lost her will to live. She was a pujari. She was serving the deity. She said, I am missing Krishna. I no longer want to live. 1 year later, I was at her bedside. She was dying of cancer. So I would say she was killed by this process. And she's just one of hundreds and perhaps thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of people who ended up in a horrible situation, ended up losing their devotional life and losing maybe even their material life. Who's responsible for all of this mayhem and chaos and child molesting and suicides of the children who were molested? Well, somebody's responsible. And somebody will be held responsible. And I believe it will be the leaders of ISKCON and the people who conspired with them and went along with them, okay, like the Aniha type guys, and those who allowed this to happen. They're also guilty. They should have defended this woman. They should have protested and said, hey, we can't have this woman kicked out. That's wrong. She's here to serve Krishna, she's not here to serve Hansaduta or the GBC. So nothing was done. And then people ran off to Sridhar Maharaj, who was a big supporter of the false GBC gurus, and Narayan Maharaj, another big supporter of the false GBC gurus, and they surrendered to those guys, and that just made the situation worse. But Srila Prabhupada gives many warnings about this. Unless the guru is a resident of Krishna Loka, he will simply cause trouble and problems. Anyone who imitates a pure devotee will have to go to the lowest regions, the most obnoxious regions of the universe. There's so many warnings. Do not imitate the pure devotee. It will cause all kinds of problems. We, as a society, obviously did not heed those warnings, and now we're suffering the result. Now, I also believe there's considerable evidence that Srila Prabhupada was being intentionally poisoned by the cabal, the living guru cabal that later became the gurus of ISKCON. And I can't get into all the details here, but suffice it to say, there is considerable evidence that he was intentionally poisoned by this group. So, in other words, this is the result. There was a big frenzy after Srila Prabhupada departed. Let's replace him with Sridhar Maharaj, with the GBC, with Narayan Maharaj, with this thing, that thing, and the other thing. And all these replacements turned out to be more trouble than good. The result was thousands of devotees were banned from ISKCON. Thousands of children were molested. Many people were beaten up. A number of people were assassinated. And all for what? So that a few jerks could sit in a big golden seat for a few years and live like a Saudi prince with an opulent lifestyle. That's what this was all about. It was never about Prabhupada's orders or what Krishna wanted or anything else. And everybody should have been aware that this is not what Krishna wants, and they should have come to assist Krishna to fix this. It's not our job to let Krishna clean up our mess. That's not how it works. We have to fix things, or we're implicated in co-conspiring by omission or commission. So to sum up here, Krishna allows us to do what we desire. If we desire to promote a pure devotee, then he'll fulfill our desire. If we desire to promote a bunch of hokey fools as his successors, he will allow that as well. And that's the problem. He allows us to, fulfill our desires, and our desires are either pure or not pure. And if they are not pure, then we have to suffer the reaction and the result. And so does our society, and so do our children, and so does the whole world, really. So we have to be very careful what we desire. I hope this helps. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.